Hey guys, welcome to test review day one. Our goal on these two test review days is just to get you ready for the test and expose you to another round of questions that you may or may not see on the upcoming tests. Okay, so it's just these might be on there, they might not be on there, but you should be prepared for anything that you see in these review day videos. Okay, so the focus for today is equations, and so we're going to take a look at the different types of equations that you might see on the test. All right. So first one here, we call this a linear equation. It's because there's no squareds, there's no fractions, there's nothing really crazy going on here. It's just a bunch of things that we need to move around. We also see some parentheses, which we'll get rid of with the distributive property here. So I'm gonna I just like to draw my line, and remember, when we solve an equation, our goal is to find the value of x that's going to make the equation true. And we do that by essentially moving things around until x is by itself. And the thing you have to remember is, whatever you do on one side, you have to do on the other side if you're moving something from one side to the other. All right, so let's give it a try. So here on the left-hand side, we have some parentheses, so I'm going to get rid of that by using the distributive property here. So I'm going to take everything inside of the parentheses and multiply by -4. So this will be negative 4x, and then -4 times 6 is -24. All right, so on the right-hand side, we've got a -6x plus, and then here we see that parentheses situation again, so I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to use the distributive property, and I'm going to multiply each thing inside of the parentheses by 4. So 4 times 5x is 20x, and 4 times 3 is 12. All right, so there we go. Now the parentheses are cleared out. I might look for opportunities to combine like terms. So if I look at my right-hand side of the equation here, I see two things that I could combine because they both have x's, so that's what my next step is going to be. So I'm not going to do anything on the left, so I'm just going to write that down again. And then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to combine these two terms, right? The -6x and the 20x. So when I combine those two, it's like doing -6 plus 20, which is going to be a positive 14. Right? So we get positive 14x plus 12. And again, all I did there was I combined these two things. All right. So I don't see anything else left to combine. I don't see any parentheses that I need to get rid of. So now I'm just going to pick a side to put my x's on, and I'm going to pick a side to put everything else on. So let's put the x's on the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 4x to both sides. And like I said, there's a lot of options at this stage. Maybe you decided to move the 24. Maybe you decided to move the 12. There's no wrong answer here. You can move whatever thing you want to move first. It doesn't matter, as long as when you're done moving things around, you get x by itself. All right. So here I go. So I'm just going to work my way left to right. Those cancel. -24 comes down. 14x plus 4x is 18x plus 12. There we go. All right, now I'm going to move the 12. All right, so I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. All right, they cancel over here. This is going to become -36, and this is where I see a lot of problems with students when they show me their work for this kind of problem. I see a lot of students just messing up negatives, right? So I might get some students that say this is -12 as a result because they added 12 instead of subtracting another 12. So just be careful with your negatives here and make sure you test it in your calculator to get it right. Okay, the 18x is going to come down. And then the last step here is to undo this multiplication between the 18 and the x. So we're going to use division to do that. So I'm going to divide both sides by 18, and the 18s will cancel. -36 divided by 18 is -2, so we find that -2 equals x. And there we go. Okay. So that would be the value of x that would make this thing true. So if I took this -2 and plugged it everywhere I see an x in this equation, it would produce an equation, or it would produce the same number on both sides of the equal sign. So that's how I know it would work. All right. But I'm a little lazy, so I'm not going to plug that in. But if you guys want to, like during the test, you can always do that as a way to check your answer. All right. So here we go. Number 2, this kind of equation is what I like to call a proportional equation, because on each side of the equal sign here we see two fractions or two proportions. All right. And the trick that I taught you in earlier lessons here was to put these in parentheses and use cross multiplication to clear the fractions. Okay, so when I do negative 8 times x plus 2, I just write that down here. So negative 8 times x plus 2, right? That's what it looks like when I multiply along this diagonal. And then I'm going to put an equal sign, and I'm going to do the other multiplication here. So this will be 4 parentheses 5x minus 4. Okay, so we've done the cross multiplication, and the result of doing cross multiplication is that we get a new equation without any fractions. There's no more fractions that we have to deal with now. So that's the beauty of it. All right, but I do need to get rid of these parentheses now, and I've got to get x by itself in the end, just like I did over here. Okay, so I'm going to use the distributive property again, and I'm going to end up doing this on both sides here to clear both parentheses. So I'm just going to try and do it all at once. All right, so negative 8 times x is negative 8x, and negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. Okay, remember, negative times a positive is a negative. All right, and then I come over here, 4 times 5x is 20x, and 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. All right. So we started with fractions, got rid of parentheses, and now we're here. Okay? And this is that stage again where you have a lot of choices. You can move anything you want here. I always start with an x term, so I'm going to move the x's to the right hand side just like I did over here. So I'm going to add 8x to both sides. So those cancel. We get negative 16 equals, this will be 28x minus 16. Okay. And then I'm going to add 16 to both sides. Okay. So then these will actually cancel over here, so we get 0 equals, and then 28x, and then these cancel too. So the 16s actually canceled each other out. I can finish this off. I can divide both sides by 28. All right, so the 28's 0 divided by 28 is just 0, and then the 28's cancel here, so we just find that x is 0. And that is our answer. All right, so if I were to take a 0 and plug it in over here, I would get the same thing on both sides of the equation. Alright guys, remember this is a review video, so if you feel like you know how to do these equations already, you don't have to keep watching the video. But if there's a specific type of equation in these notes that you really want to see because you know you struggle with it, then watch the video for that part. So feel free to fast forward and rewind or pause, or do whatever you need to do. Watch the parts that you feel like you need most, and then go try the practice problems and see how you do. Right. This one, believe it or not, is actually a quadratic. We don't see an x squared like we do down here, but if I were to take these parentheses here and multiply them out, we would end up with something that looks like this. But this is way easier, actually. So this is where we use that zero product property, and that tells us that if I have two things that multiply to give me 0, and we do, we have x plus 4 and x plus 1. Those two things are multiplying, and we get a 0. What that means is one of these two things has to be a 0. So we're going to pretend that x plus 4 is the 0. Right? So I say x plus 4 equals 0, and then I solve. Right? So I just subtract 4 from both sides, and we find that x equals negative 4. And there's one of my solutions. Okay? And then I do the same thing. Well, what if the x plus 1 is the 0? Because we don't really know which one is going to end up being the 0. Right, so I'm going to say, well, let's pretend x plus 1 is the 0 for a minute. Then we could get this, right? I could subtract 1 from both sides and find that x equals negative 1. And there's my second solution. Okay, so we need both of these to get full credit. All right, so if you see one like that on MyOpenMath, they'll probably have you enter in the answer like this. So you'll say negative 4 comma negative 1 to get both solutions in there, and you just separate them with a comma when you get there. Right? So when you see one set up like this, think zero product property, split them up, and set them each equal to 0 and solve. That's all there is to it. That's a really easy one. So that's like a gift there. All right. So let's go to number 4. Number 4 is one where we need to solve for a variable, but there's more than one variable here. Okay, so when I look at this one, we've got an x, we've got a y, and they tell us which variable to solve for. So they want us to solve for y, which is, code word for get y by itself. No problem. We can get y by itself. So I'm going to start by moving anything that's not a y over to the other side. So I'm going to start with the 3x. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. Okay, and I'll just work left to right, so they cancel. All that's left is 2y. And then here we have 16 minus 3x. Now remember, these are not like terms. Do not actually try to subtract those, okay? You can't. One has an x and one does not. So you cannot actually add or subtract these, so don't try. All right? All right, this will actually be the last step here, but I need to separate the 2 and the y, and since they're being multiplied, the way I do that is with division, right? So if I divide one side of the equation by 2, I have to divide the other side of the equation by 2. That means everything gets divided by 2. Okay? So let's work left to right here. 2's cancel. Y is by itself, which was our goal because we want to solve for y. And then I go through and I divide each of these items. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. And we'll just say 1.5x. You could leave your answer in fractional form, so you could just say 8 minus 3 over 2x. So you can just leave it like that too. Either one of these are good. Right? There we are. All right, last one I'm going to show you here. This is another quadratic, and it's set up a little bit differently than the other quadratic that we saw. It's in that standard form, and this is kind of nice. Whenever we see something like this, we have two options. We can either factor, if possible, or we can use quadratic formula. I haven't shown you factoring yet, so we're going to default to the quadratic formula here, and that's why I put this here. You'll have this on the test too. You won't have to memorize this formula. You just need to know when to use it. All right, so when you see something that looks like this, you use this. All right, that's the only thing you need to know, and then you'll have the quadratic formula provided to you on every question. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to figure out what A, B, and C are. Let's see what happens here. So A is going to be 3, right? That's always the number in front of x squared. B is going to be negative 8. Right, so we do it's a minus, but it's kind of like a negative, so we say negative 8, and then over here we're going to have negative 80, right? Because that is our constant on the end. And then I'm going to use my formula to set up here. Okay, so we have a negative built into the formula and a negative attached to the b, so that's why I go negative, negative 8. A lot of students are like, you're weird, Mr. Weldon, why are you putting two negatives there? Again, one on the b, one on the formula. There they are. All right. So plus or minus, and then we're going to do b squared, and do not forget your parentheses here. A lot of students mess this up, okay? Do not forget your parentheses. And then we got minus 4ac, right? So 4 times 3 times negative 80, okay? And this is all over 2 times a, so 2 times 3. And remember what I've taught you in the previous videos. One simple thing at a time. All right, I'm still seeing students that are they're trying to enter this entire mess into the calculator at once. You're gonna make a typo. You're gonna mess up a negative. Something's gonna go wrong. You'll type in something wrong, I guarantee it, and you'll frustrate yourself. One simple thing at a time. All right, and you probably won't need a calculator. If you do, it should be something simple to put in. All right, so first thing here, I'm gonna take care of these negatives in the beginning. Oops. Right, so negative negative 8 becomes positive 8. That was easy, right? Then I work my way across, one simple thing at a time. Negative 8 squared is a positive 64. Okay, so all I've done was this and then this. It's like one little math problem at a time. Okay, now I do 4 times 3 times negative 80, and I might grab my calculator for this one. It's kind of big, so I'll grab my calculator and put that in there. And you'll notice as I say that I'm ignoring the negatives for right now, and that's okay. I'm just going to do 4 times 3 times 80. That's all I want to know for right now. And I get 960. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here, and I'm just going to write down 960. No matter what, I'm putting a 960 there. The question is it plus or minus? And I can always tell that just by looking at the negatives here. There's one negative here, one negative here, two negatives make a positive. All right, so I'm going to put a plus there, just like it did over here. Okay, if there was only one negative over here, okay, then this would be a minus. Okay, all right, so let's keep going. 2 times 3, that would be a 6. There we go. All right, so like I said, we've done a bunch of simple things. We're gonna keep trying to do simple things here. There's nothing to do with the 8 right now, but one simple thing I could do is inside the square root, I can do this addition problem. Okay, so I'm going to set up my square root, and I need to figure out what 64 plus 960 is. And again, I might use my calculator for this one just because I'm lazy and I don't want to do it in my head, which is fine. So I got 1024. But you notice what I'm putting into the calculator when I do use it are just very simple things. Okay, nothing too complicated to enter in. Alright, so now I'm looking for something to do. I'm going to do this square root of 1024. And again, I'll grab my calculator. I'm going to do 1024, and we got a nice number, which is really cool. So we got, I'll just write it down below. So we got 8 plus or minus 32 over 6. Yep, 32. Just making sure I didn't mess that number up. Alright, and then this is the stage where now everything's simplified quite a bit. This is the stage where you want to split off into 2 separate problems. So I'm going to do 8 plus 32 first, and this will be over 6, and then I'm going to do 8 minus 32 over 6, and that's your plus or minus, right? That's what this means, that there's actually 2 problems that you need to do here. Okay, and I think I can do these ones in my head. 8 plus 32 is 40. And then 8 minus 32 is negative 24 over 6. So I think I might need to get a calculator for this one. So I'll do 40 divided by 6. And I got 6.667, so I'll say 6.67 if I were rounding to 2 decimal places. And then down here, negative 24 divided by 6 is negative 4. So there is one solution. There is my second solution. And that's it. Alright guys, so that's a rundown of the different types of equations that you might see on the test starting on Wednesday. If you have questions, make sure you go over to the Zoom chat and ask. Have a great day.